Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box with your name, what organization you're with, your role, and thank you for being here. We're so excited to have you all here with us. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. For folks who jumped on early, sorry, this is maybe the third round that you're hearing me say this, but welcome, everyone. We're so glad you're here. Thank you for being here. We will get started in probably just 1 minute. As we wait, also, I think this is up on the slide, but feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And we will get started in probably 30 seconds. So grab water, anything you need for the next hour. All right, Marissa, I'm keeping an eye on the chat and seeing many folks still jumping on it, but I think we're about halfway. We have 24 folks on right now. Thank you all for being here. But with that, Marissa, maybe you and I can start our intros, and then we'll turn it over to you, Eric, to introduce Jen.
Sorry, that sounds good. I am feverishly letting people in from the waiting room if I'm a little bit delayed.
That sounds good. How about I do my intro first, and I'll intro Avery, and then maybe by the time we get through those, folks will be in from the waiting room. Does that work for you?
Sounds great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Carver. I am the manager of internships here at College for Social Innovation. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am going to intro Avery Monroe, who is another member of our team, but is actually an AmeriCorps Vista with us and in an AmeriCorps retreat today, but she maybe has been in touch with all of you. She's really taking the lead for our team on all things host org recruitment. She's also an alum of our program, my first semester here, and is an all-around awesome human. I didn't say anything really about my role. Sorry, Marissa. In my role, I oversee most of our day-to-day internship programs. So that's all things from coaching students and supporting students in their internships to having the pleasure of building and managing relationships with all of our current host organizations and mentors there. Marissa, did that get you enough time?
That was great. Hi, everyone. Apologies to not be able to join via video today. My name is Marissa Rodriguez. I think I, for the most part, still look like that headshot in the middle there. I'm the Director of Experiential Learning here at the College for Social Innovation. And my role is really to support Avery and Ellie, as well as to be the link between what's happening in internships and what's happening in the classroom. So really excited to see so many folks here and just sort of all the breadth of different types of organizations that I'm seeing in the chat. And with that, I think we're kicking it over to Eric Schwartz, our CEO.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marissa and Ellie and Avery and Abstentia. Those three, they're going to talk a lot. Well, Avery won't, but they're amazing. So one of the huge benefits of potentially working with Semester in the City and College for Social Innovation, a chance to work with Marissa and Ellie and Avery, and encourage everyone to grab that if you have a chance to. I just have the brief role and the honor of introducing our special guest this morning, who's Jen Aronson, who for 5 years, as we've been getting College for Social Innovation off the ground and went through a pilot and now starting to grow the program, working with more than 120 different social change organizations in Boston. Jen's just been an incredible partner. The Boston Foundation, I think we're lucky to have it, does so much work, not just to fund change, but to sort of think about and research and advocate for systemic change in the greater Boston area. And Jen's been a big part of that. And her particular role is to really build the sort of nonprofit sector and think about ways systemically to build sort of the social justice ecology for opportunity and for change in Boston. So with that, Jen, thank you so much for sharing a few words of perspective on kind of the time we're in and how this, the important work around kind of building the talent pipeline for nonprofits and other social change organizations. I will turn it over to you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Eric. Good afternoon, everyone. What an afternoon. What a moment we are in. I think it's safe to say that the importance of the nonprofit sector has never been so clear. As nonprofit leaders, you are all supporting our most vulnerable residents to remain housed, fed, employed, and cared for. You're protecting our democracy. You're fighting for all students to have the chance to learn. You're working to preserve our planet, and you are nourishing our souls through creativity and the elevation of expression. And you're doing all of this and more while navigating work from home challenges and supporting sick and struggling family, friends, and neighbors. For those of us living and working in communities that have long experienced disinvestment and marginalization, the burden of these challenges is more intense. Yesterday, I had the honor of offering opening remarks for a webinar and report release focused on how Massachusetts nonprofits are continuing to fall short in our efforts to support and promote leaders of color, and the challenges facing these leaders as they aspire to and attain senior roles in nonprofit organizations. The report by the Building Movement Project, titled "The Burden of Bias in the Bay State," is available on our website. It illustrates the consequences of structural racism on nonprofit organizations, but also highlights the opportunity before us to redouble our efforts to tear down the biases, practices, and policies that are holding back too many of our community's most valuable leaders. Here at the Boston Foundation, we are explicit about supporting and increasing the number and influence of people of color leaders and those with firsthand experience and relationships of mutual trust and respect with the communities they serve. We know that such leaders can drive the clearest insights, the most relevant solutions, and the most effective and lasting impact. With their semester in the City Fellowship Program, the College for Social Innovation is creating a pipeline of these leaders. And your opportunity today is to learn how you can support this effort and be part of this movement. We are happy to support the College for Social Innovation from their inception, as Eric mentioned, because we believe in the approach, the team, and the mission to connect with and help build a bigger, better prepared, more diverse talent pipeline for social impact. And in fact, we see this commitment as inseparable from TBF's own mission to build and sustain a vital, prosperous city and region where justice and opportunity are extended to everyone. With many current nonprofit leaders planning to retire or transition to another sector over the next 5 to 10 years, we have a big opportunity. But we also have a lot of work to do to build and connect with a more inclusive, representative, and diverse talent pipeline. Building and connecting with this pipeline requires exposure, mentorship, and opportunity early in life. And that's where the semester in the City Fellowship comes in, and where each of you can play a role. I want to kick it back to the team from College for Social Innovation. But first, I want to again recognize and thank you all for what you're doing to sustain and strengthen our communities.
Thanks, Jen. Back over to you, Ellie and Marissa.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jen. That was great. And I think just so timely for where the city is at, and just the awesome work that we hope to support in all of the organizations that are represented here today. So thanks so much to you for those words, and to the Boston Foundation for being such a pivotal partner for us. All right, I'm gonna just do some kind of high level organizational information to kind of get us started. So as you'll see there on the screen, our mission is really to educate and inspire the next generation of problem solvers. And so much of what Jen just talked about speaks to that mission. We really believe that our role can be to activate the power of young people and be able to help build a robust talent sector a robust talent pipeline in the social sector to really tackle so many things that are going on in our city and sort of in the greater Boston area, and hopefully someday beyond. Ellie, if you don't mind going to the next slide. The way that we do that is through our semester in the city program. Essentially, when I do my elevator pitch for what my job is, I start always by saying we work with undergraduate college students from, organization or universities as big as University of New Hampshire and as small as Clark or Becker. And they come here for a semester in the city, and these sort of three pieces of our program puzzle really come together in what we believe is a transformative semester for them. So, the biggest cornerstone, Eric likes to call it our special sauce, but that always makes me hungry, is the internship. They spend the majority of the time with their mentors and in their host organizations. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. They also have 2 courses that they take with us. And then there's a whole community life component of this, both residential and just sort of a cohort building experience. And out of the semester, they are gaining a ton of skills and experience. They are building their networks, and they're leaving with a full semester of credit, which for those of us who didn't grow up affluent, that idea of not having to do something like this on top of everything else in college is really important to the feasibility of being able to do it. Our first generation students are students of color, things of that nature. I think you can go ahead and go to the next one. The key skills that we're building here in our model, you'll see our 4 core skill domains are launching a purpose-driven career. That's where a lot of what you all do with them and what I do with them in our Friday Becoming a Problem Solver class comes in. Working in diverse teams, that diversity, equity, and inclusion piece that's coming so much to the forefront of our work in much needed ways, and a lot of where the Boston Foundation's work is coming to the forefront now as well. Human-centered problem solving, and then persuasive communication or persuasive storytelling. We really believe that sort of unique combination of things, we are able to really leverage experiential learning to find meaningful gains in those skills, and that students then leave our program feeling more prepared to engage in work in the social sector. So this is a general schedule here for what a typical fellows week looks like. You'll notice here it's a 9 to 5 schedule with all of you. That is not fellows work schedules have a variety of sort of start times and end times, but really the big thing here is that what you'll notice is the most amount of time that they spend during their semester in the city is with all of you. And we really think that supporting host organizations to support our students is the biggest value add, both for the work that they're doing this semester and the capacity that they're building within organizations, but also more broadly as the sort of skills that they're building that will sort of launch the rest of their career. That being said, we have fellows who are working in schools that may start earlier and end earlier. The only 2 pieces of the schedule that you should keep in mind in terms of feasibility are that Wednesday evening Social Innovators Toolbox course, and then they're with us all day on Fridays for the Becoming a Problem Solver course. And then that blue area there does not mean that we dictate when they should be doing homework and all of those things, but just to say that this is an all-encompassing experience, and they have a lot going on this semester that happens outside of kind of when the internship hours are. Ellie, is this still me? Sorry.
I think this is your last one, Marissa.
Perfect. All right, I'll come out with a bang then. So this is like the general kind of idea around how a fellow's time at their internship is spent. You'll see that 50% of that time is really the general capacity building work. And that's everything from, things we all had to do as interns or entry level employees, the get the mailing out, the make the copies, those kinds of things, to projects that are a little bit meatier. Because they're there for 30 hours a week, oftentimes we find that organizations are able to weave fellows into the kind of fabric of their staff. And that means that they can give them projects that they might not be able to give a 20-hour-a-week intern or something along those lines. The other piece that's a cornerstone to both, I think, the impact that fellows have on their organizations, but also that the learning experience has on fellows, is that 40% of their time that they're spending on their special project. Their special project is a capacity building project that you all will give us information about in the matching process. We try to match skills, interest areas, majors, and things like that to that project, as well as the rest of the position. And it's something that they come out with sort of a tangible deliverable that they will then have for all of you to be able to leverage in years and semesters to come, but also have this sort of discrete project that they've owned throughout the semester. And then 10% professional development and observation. That's anything from, attending a staff meeting to getting to observe programming if they're not in a direct service role, things like that. We show you this breakdown not because we, track their hours stringently to those timelines, because we know that there's a lot of overlap between those three areas, but to say that we are really intentional about sort of helping to cultivate an experience that's well-rounded for them. And with that, I think I'm kicking it back over to Ellie.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. And for folks that maybe missed my intro, Ellie Carver, she, her, hers, manager of internships here at College for Social Innovation. Marissa has started to allude to some of this in some of the previous slides, but we're very intentional to call our fellows and not interns. And we think that this slide speaks to what really makes our placements unique. So you'll see on that left-hand side in the gray box, fellows have the opportunity to work really closely with a dedicated mentor that's both invested in their professional development, but also their personal and student experience with all of us. That second bullet is exactly what Marissa started talking about, that meaningful work, including but not limited to that special project. And we will dive into special projects a little bit later. And the third bullet is really just a testament to Marissa, and her role is thinking about how we really try and connect the coursework in our classes to both support and connect to their internships. That red box on the right is probably what's most intriguing for all of you, is what makes this unique to partner with us. So that first bullet, 30 hours a week, is really what we continue to hear over and over from mentors, is that folks start to really weave into the culture of the organizations. And 30 hours a week, of course, is like almost a full-time employee. So just the amount of capacity that they're able to build and projects they're able to take on feels a little different than if an intern was just with you for, say, 10 hours a week. That second bullet speaks to sort of the special project again, but what we like to say to fellows and also applicants is thinking about that as like a wish list item that like a fellow can really take on and own, and might be something that the organization hasn't had capacity to get done in the past. And that third bullet is something we're really excited about and continue to think about, is how do we both provide professional development, but also act as support for all of our mentors and also our fellows, just by having our dedicated internship staff to be there for all of you to problem solve or to celebrate successes, there for challenges and beyond. Awesome. Some of this I already got to, so I will try not to repeat myself too much, but these are some of the benefits that we have heard and wanted to highlight for all of you of hosting a fellow. So that first is about the recruitment and matching process. So as Marissa started to speak to, we use your application and fellow applications to really make the best matches possible based on both skill sets, issue areas, passions, and more. We continue to build our mentor and host organization learning community, which is that second bullet around professional development or networking opportunities. I spoke to this, our CFSI internship team there as dedicated support. Obviously, having a 30-hour week intern to be there with you as a fellow to help build capacity. Of course, to Jen's point earlier, being able to sort of have hands-on opportunity to help build the future and in the social sector by building that talent pipeline. And last but not least, for folks who maybe are newer to management or just want to continue to get management experience, we hear from all level of organizations, all levels of folks at organizations, how meaningful it can feel to manage our fellows, both to push their learning, to give new insight, and to have the chance to relationship build. Marissa, I also don't have my eye on the chat as closely, so if folks are asking any questions or I should pause, just let me know.
There is one question that just came through from Mimi, which is how competitive is the program? How many fellows are available?
Yeah, do you want to take that, Marissa, or do you want me to?
I am happy to. So we are looking at around 66 fellows coming in the spring. We, as I mentioned, recruit from a variety of schools. And so we really try to make sure that we are focused on inclusion throughout the cohort and diversity of the cohort. And the diversity of experience and types of majors, I think, is part of that. In terms of competitiveness, I don't know that I have specific numbers. I would say one of the trends that we've seen throughout my time here in terms of host org recruitment is that on that side of things tends to be pretty competitive. We have more host organizations that are applying than we do fellows that are coming in a given semester. And so part of our approach in all of these sort of recruitment cycles is to really see it as the start of a conversation and a partnership and not a filling our need at that time. It really helps us to be able to find the right fit for organizations, who has the right major, who will be able to interact with the populations that the organization is serving, who has the skills and background that will work for any given special project. So we really do, throughout the matching process, sort of tailor to fit, both for the student and for the host organizations.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa, for noticing that question, and definitely feel free to pause me or jump in should we get any other ones. Awesome. So Marissa loves data. I also love data, but not as much as Marissa. So I'm going to speak quickly to the slide, but to my earlier point, we'll get you these slides after this so you can read through these quotes a little bit more on your own time. But we do want to highlight how we continue semester over semester to see that both fellows and mentors really feel as if there's a reciprocal value add on both ends of partnering with us. So anyone not familiar with that NPS, that's Net Promoter Score, which is a satisfaction score ranging from -100 to +100, and a +40 is considered pretty good. So what you'll see here from both our fellows and our mentors, that +83 and +86 are incredibly high. So that's just alluding to the relationship that mentor and fellows are able to build, and how both ends of that are really finding that really meaningful. More data that we're excited to share is that, of course, like one of our overarching goals is to continue to bring folks in, diversify, and build a strong talent pipeline for the social sector. So we're really excited to see that 88% of our mentors would consider hiring or at least bringing in their fellow for an entry-level position at their organization. So we just think that's a testament to both our fellows and how they're showing up, but also the real opportunity for folks to be brought into the social sector through our program or through their fellowship with us. Lastly, this is a slide that we are really excited by, and it's just showing that our semester in the city graduates or alumni are really entering the social sector at higher rates. So you'll see on that left-hand side of the slide that 67% of our folks, alumni of our program who are in the workforce are in the social sector. And that's in comparison to that 27, that green bar, of all workers in the United States. So we continue to be both really amazed by where our fellows go on to and with the work that they do, but it's part of what keeps me excited and hopeful about the future is that we have some really passionate, incredible young people joining us in the work in different issue areas across the board in the social sector.
Ellie, can I just jump in for 1 second? A great question came through in the chat. And I just want to pause and talk a little bit about how we define the social sector within our organization. So while Boston has an awesome saturation of nonprofits and we work with a lot of them, we sort of see the social sector as three main buckets. The first is social mission businesses, government, and nonprofits sort of all make up our conception of the social sector. So I'm super excited to see some folks that are from mission-driven businesses. I'm super excited to see some folks from the city and state on the call. And you all are more than welcome to apply. We're always trying to make sure that we can have a diverse offering for fellows, especially because of the wide variety of majors that we have coming into any given cohort.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. And I actually think this next slide is yours. So perfect transition.
Great. Love it. So, you know, when we talk about what it takes to host a fellow, it sort of boils down to some basic things. The first is the dedicated mentor. We're really looking for not just a site supervisor, but somebody who's interested in investing in that next generation of the talent pipeline. As you saw in the data, we do really believe that there's a reciprocal relationship that keeps organizations coming back and that helps us to build partnerships and have transformative semester for fellows. And so much of the root of that is at the mentor is so much at the heart and the root of that, that we're really looking for folks who are interested in taking that on. And I would say, I can speak for Ellie and say one of the best parts of our jobs is being able to support mentors so that it doesn't feel like that mentor versus site supervisor comes at the expense of your own capacity, right? We always want to be mindful of making your lives as easy as we possibly can so that you have time to do the awesome work that your organizations are doing and to have that impact on fellows. So we are looking for folks who are, interested in that and, willing to help in it however we can on the capacity side of that. The next thing, and we talked about sort of the benefits of the 30 hours per week, but it is important that there is, when you're thinking about a position, that position has 30 hours a week sort of attached to it in terms of the amount of workload and things like that. The special project, that 40% of that time, about 12 hours per week, although it doesn't break down, you don't have to have exactly 12 hours every week for the special project, is a piece of that 30 hours. So it's not 30 hours plus the special project, it's 30 hours inclusive of the special project. And I know as, COVID has set in and folks have moved more operations online, we've been working with our mentors who were trying to figure out how to translate what was an in-person position to still being a meaningful 30 hours a week. We've learned a lot and we support a lot through that process. So if you're worried at all about that piece, don't be. We can, we'll work with you all to figure that out. The next piece is, we need our host organizations in the application process to have some idea of what special project they would be looking at. We are very aware, as are all of you, that 2020, in any given moment, lots of things can change. So it's not ever set in stone, but we do use that in the matching process to try and have that other factor of fit. So, if your social media project, let's say, doesn't have all the details worked out about what kind of campaign the fellow might be working on, but generally that it's going to be a social media campaign, that's enough for us to know we should find a student who's interested and comfortable with social media to be able to make sure that their on-ramp to doing that work is as seamless as possible. And then the last one, I would say in terms of all four things on this list, probably Eric, cover your ears for a second, the least important to Ellie and I, but is that $700 host organization fee. We actually provide a stipend to fellows and some other resources that comes out to about $600 a semester. And so most of that host organization fee kind of covers that support of fellows. I think our finance person's also on, so it's not quite direct that link, Keo, sorry. But that's the general idea is we want to be able to have host organizations invest in some of the operations and support of fellows throughout the semester. Especially because they're unpaid positions, and that's why we provide some of that support. That being said, if for any reason everything else sounds great, you have a great special project, you have a fantastic mentor in mind, and the fee is the only thing that's standing in the way of you applying, we always encourage people to apply. We have a small fund, I guess, of sort of like fee waivers or partial waivers of the fee each semester that if we think an organization has a lot of promise, can oftentimes help get a fellow in the door, so that if you need to make the case to someone who controls the purse strings at your organization, having that little bit of a break for a semester, oftentimes what we've found is that in future semesters, not only do organizations are able to like justify that fee, but are also oftentimes adding more fellows to the mix because they find so much value. Eric always likes to say it's the best deal in town. And I think with that, I'm kicking it back over to you, Ellie.
Yeah, you are. Thank you for doing that, Marissa. Awesome. So we've talked a lot about special projects, and we're going to actually give you a few examples now. So what you'll see on this slide is the criteria for our special projects. So I think we've spoken to most of this, but briefly, and like I said, we'll get you all this information. 40% of a fellow's time, something they can really take the lead on and implement the project. Of course, meaningful work that meets a real need for the organization. We do like to point out that, if there are two smaller projects that can sort of add up to 40% of your fellow's time, we're definitely willing to have that be in the application, as well as like we've said a few times, this is a graded experience. So we ask for folks to think through in the application or before, like, what would a tangible deliverable be, both for us to grade, but more so for you all to really be able to sustain the work once your fellow has left. So maybe more excitingly or more helpful, I'm going to briefly talk through, and I don't know if we said this, I just saw that Lisa joined on, who is a current mentor who we're going to get to hopefully soon. So I'm not going to go too in detail on these special projects, but we'll have some question time at the end. So if I say anything or miss anything, we'll have time to talk through special projects a bit more at the end. But this is an example of a special project from one of our long partners, Ground Truth Project, which supports local journalism around our country and actually internationally. And their fellow last semester helped them build a how to code one of their newsletters onto Apple News. So this fellow was incredible and taught herself JavaScript, and then how to train their team on how to sort of get their Apple News channel up and running. Another highlight, this fellow continues to work part-time with them and had a great experience with them. So that's an example of a special project that wasn't actually intended to be done fully remotely, but as the last semester shifted to online work, was a really awesome fit. Similarly, every time I get to this slide, I laugh because I'm like, I don't really know how to explain this project because I know so little about accounting. But luckily, Nina, the fellow who was at JPNDC, knew more about accounting than I did and helped them, helped other departments within JPNDC understand the role of asset management within their organization, and built this incredible report you'll see on the slide that has those built-in trend lines and color-coded variants. So all things that were super valuable to the organization, and continues to make me realize I don't know much about data visualization in a way that I wish I did. Thirdly, this is another example from last semester when things shifted online. So 826 Boston is another longstanding partner who continues to host multiple fellows with us per semester, and their fellow Mia, who was at the Burke High School in Dorchester, transitioned her writing workshop online. So you'll see that Seesaw platform, which I'm not super familiar with, allowed them to run their creative writing club remotely. And so Mia facilitated workshops there and built lesson plans for someone to continue to do that after she left. So that's sort of an example for any direct service folks of a project that fits within that realm. And last but not least, Ari was a fellow with us in fall 19, and she was at Hyde Square Task Force, and she really took on their Giving Tuesday campaign. So it's a little bit hard to see, but once you have these slides, hopefully you'll be able to see she built them the graphics that are included sort of in that upper right hand corner. She also was able to make a Vimeo video for their giving campaign, and also ran all of their like Facebook fundraising and other social media campaigns related to Giving Tuesday. We also have a resource that we can share with anyone who's interested about like what are some starter questions to think through, like if you're not sure about what a great special project might be. So you'll see those questions in here. We'll get this to you. And also we just like to offer, if the special project is sort of like a sticking point and you're not sure, our team is always available to sort of be a thought partner or to bounce ideas off of. If you're starting to think about what you might want to apply with. I think we've said this before, but just to reiterate, the special project is included in the application. So it's really helpful to think through it in advance, and we're here to support that in any way. Marissa, anything I missed before we sort of switch gears? And Lisa, we'll do a quick intro and then turn it over to you.
I don't think so. That was great.
Awesome. I am going to do a quick intro for Lisa, but then I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen for a second so we can actually see each other and make it feel a little bit more like we're in the same room. So Lisa is actually a first-time mentor with us, but we asked her to be with us today because she has been a really awesome fellow, really awesome mentor for our fellow, but also has provided a really unique opportunity for one of our fellows who's more like science oriented. So Lisa, thank you for being here. And I am going to stop sharing my screen, but maybe would love you to also feel free to maybe do an intro of you, talk a little bit more about what the Charles River Watershed Association does and maybe how Shay has supported your work so far.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Ellie. Yeah, so I'm a first-time mentor. We found out about this program through a network connection and decided to check it out. I am the aquatic scientist at the Charles River Watershed Association. We're a small nonprofit, only 8 full-time employees, but we do a large breadth of work. My work is mainly in water quality monitoring on the Charles River. And we have hosted interns for many years now on kind of a semester rotating basis. And I guess the reason that we decided to apply this cycle is because we often have a lot of opportunities for interns to, work with us. But, it's challenging for them if they don't have the support that they need. And I think that the CFSI program really does provide that background support. It's also 30 hours a week for the interns, which is typically more than we would get from other interns who have part-time jobs or are students. So that's been a big benefit.
Awesome, Lisa, that was great. And I know I said I promised questions, so I'm going to start with my questions, and then I think that folks, I'll ask probably like 3 or 4 questions, but feel free to start putting questions for Lisa directly in the chat, and we can always pivot that time to give more time to you all to ask questions directly. But Lisa, we just finished talking about special projects, and you probably heard some of that. Thanks for jumping on. And I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about what Shay's special project is and how that sort of, it's hard to believe there's only like 5 weeks left in the program. So how it's sort of come to be, where is it now, and what will it look like at the end of the semester?
Yeah, so Shay, so we had originally reached out and saying, this is a little bit different. We were really looking for someone with a science background, and the folks here, Ellie and Marissa, were great in working with us, saying that there are some applicants who have a science background and are looking for that. So Shay's special project that we proposed is working on one of our water quality monitoring programs. So she was able in the fall semester, just based on kind of our time frame for that project, she was able to go out and sample for several weeks at the beginning of her internship. And now she's kind of compiling all of the data that she was able to collect and is writing the final report for that project, which goes to our funders and is posted on our website. So it's a something that we do every year that usually our interns do help with, that I would be overseeing anyways. But this as a special project, I guess, allows Shay to really have that opportunity to kind of get more in depth with one thing and really develop her professional skills and scientific skills in this case through that.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa. And this is great to have you on as someone who is in their first semester with us. I would love any reflections for you as how, I know you said you were referred through someone else, but how you ended up deciding to apply. Were there any key factors that, you're like, this is really worth our time or effort? Any initial reactions there as a first-time applicant?
I think the 30 hours per week was a big draw, as I said before, and also just having the support. One of the things that we had struggled with in our previous internship program was really making sure that the interns were having a meaningful experience, just because that is not the expertise or focus of any of our staff members in particular, since we're spread pretty thin. So, the support of the program, while yes, I do mentor and support Shay robustly, it's not the same as if she gets, all of this other experience and gets to share it with a cohort of people who are doing the same thing.
That was great. Lisa, I'm going to go off script a little bit. So sorry, I didn't give this one in advance, but just curious if you could share like one of the like highlights of having Shay with you all, like a success or of joy, and then maybe like one of the challenges that you all have worked through and sort of come out on the other side of.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Shay has been fantastic. She's been really flexible. And I think one of the main successes, and was something I was nervous about going into this fall internship, was the communication aspect, since we are remote. So Shay has been kind of mostly remote, but then in person when doing field work. And I think because she has the support of and also accountability of the program that she's in, working remotely has been a success, which is great. I think there haven't been too many big challenges yet, other than some, changes in field work having to do with COVID and personnel issues, but really not many, challenges really.
That's awesome to hear. And also we like to say, like, there are definitely some Lisa's great. And I think Shay is also great, but our team is here to help think through challenges as they come up. Our program is wonderful. And of course, like, life is life. And especially in this current moment, things come up. So that's a role that our team is really here to support in challenges. Lisa, one other question maybe for you, and then I will turn it over to other people. So start getting ready. If you're on this call, this is pretty informal. Feel free to unmute, drop them in the chat, whatever feels right. But Lisa, as you start to think ahead, I would love to hear like what has made this partnership like most meaningful maybe, and like what continues to keep you thinking about partnering with us potentially again in the future.
Yeah, I think the meaning has really come out of the interactions that we've had with Shay and the rest of our team at CRWA. She definitely puts a lot of thought into what she's doing, which I think is really framed by the classes that she's taking as well. And so as before, we kind of didn't feel like we were supporting our interns or giving them a meaningful experience. I definitely feel like with this program support, we are giving a more meaningful experience that they can use as a professional development opportunity, but as well as just a development as a person.
Awesome. I could ask a million more questions, and I'm going to pause because that is hopefully now other folks will have them too. So encourage people to feel free to unmute and ask questions that way. I think that if we could keep about 5 minutes for questions, mostly towards Lisa, and then we'll kind of do some of the logistics wrap up and can take questions for our CFSI team after that.
So this is Mimi from the Mayor's Office of Financial Empowerment. Thanks so much for this opportunity. My question is really in terms of when you look at the pie chart around what it is that people do, how much of it is in terms of a match what we suggest, what they're interested in, kind of where is the synergy. I mean, I know that often with interns, they're looking for a lot of guidance, but it feels like your program, people seem to be a little more clear in terms of wanting to do social justice work. And so I guess I'd be really interested in hearing maybe one of the earlier fellows talk about that in terms of that process, how specific you want us to be in the proposal, and kind of when they come in, do they know exactly what they want to do, or is there a planning process? What does that look like?
Lisa, do you want to give an example maybe of if there was any like collaboration on any of the work with Shay, and then Marissa and I can jump in after that?
Yeah, I think at the beginning of the process of getting to know, so applying, and then I had some conversations with Ellie and Marissa around, whether this would be a good fit for certain applicants that they were getting. And then early in the process, we did have like a one-on-one meeting, just me and Shay. And so at that point, we really talked about the potential special project and got the feeling of, if that would be a good fit for her. But, I had a couple other ideas in my back pocket. So I think there is opportunity to be flexible in that, even if you don't apply for it in the application, but Ellie can answer that better.
Marissa, you want to jump in?
I'd love to. Yeah, we really try and use the application to find that sense of fit, both in terms of like specifics of the position that you have in mind, but also sort of cultural fit. Is it a position that's really direct service focused? Is it, in Lisa's case, we reached out pretty early after the application because we don't have a lot of like hard science. I'm not a scientist either, so I'm not gonna like say words that I don't know. But something that Shay ended up being a unique fit for was the sort of unique thing that they needed in their application. So what I always suggest folks do in their application is like, let us know where they have flexibility and where they don't, right? If you know that your position is really accounting focused, let's say like at JPNDC with Nina's example, we couldn't have put somebody there who wasn't an accounting major because of the nature of that work. I'm also not an accountant. And so being able to talk to Marianne, who was the awesome mentor at that time, to get a sense of some of those specifics around like what was flexible in terms of like skills or background that the fellow was coming in with, is something that we do as part of that process in matching. And we'll talk about the timeline and some more specifics to that right after this, but it's always great to know where you have flexibility and where you don't. The application, as you'll notice, if you're a first-time applicant or your organization is a first-time applicant, there's some general organizational pieces, but primarily what we're asking for information about is the mentor and then sort of like what you have in mind for the position and special project. And so as much detail as in terms of like where there are flexibilities and those pieces, it's just helpful for us because we really do curate the matching process in a way that looks for the most places of intersection between the fellow's skills and interests and your needs and interests and the mentor's interest.
Yeah, the only other thing, thank you, Marissa, that was awesome. The other thing I would add is if the place where, like, say the special project is like a fit with their skills and then they're learning to or hoping to build other skills, a lot of times some of that will come in that like general work, other 50% of their time. So I think in particular, if someone wants to build their like marketing skills but doesn't have a social media or marketing project, maybe they'll do some social media posts on the side or have a like lunch with the marketing team to just learn more. So even if the special project isn't that place for flexibility, hopefully in those general skill building or that general capacity building or professional development, someone can sort of like learn or be flexible within that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Maybe Marissa, I see you unmuting. Before I say anything else, did you want to jump in?
Nope, I think the next slide's mine. So I was just trying to save myself the embarrassment of talking before I unmuted.
That's okay. I was going to say, Lisa, maybe we'll put up the next timeline slide. And if you have the ability to stay on, we can kind of have folks continue to ask questions throughout. Does that work for you?
Sure, yeah, I can stay on.
Awesome. Marissa, I will get that slide up so you have it to reference.
Perfect. While Ellie's doing that, Lisa, one of the questions that I answered from an organizational perspective in the chat, but if you have any other thoughts on, and I know you spoke to some of it, but just sort of like COVID specific changes from when you applied to when sort of like Shay got here, if there's anything that comes to mind in terms of things you had to think about differently.
Yeah, I mean, one big thing for us is transportation. So actually one of the concerns of us potentially not being able to have a fellow was that our office is located a little bit far from like the very end of the Green Line in Weston. So we had initially not been sure that we could actually host a fellow because of that limitation. So it did kind of get resolved with COVID in a weird way, that it works better for Shay to be remote most of the time. But also we've had to figure out kind of transportation issues around sampling, which is typically a bit easier when we are all in the office. So again, I think it all has come back to communication, and Shay's been great with that, with the support of the program.
Awesome, thank you. And that's a great example of something that we shifted course on a little bit as a result of sort of the reality of COVID. Previously, fellows were given a, the typical sort of monthly MBTA pass, and anything outside of that was sort of their responsibility for transportation. What we shifted to, because we knew that folks weren't necessarily going to be using enough trips on the MBTA to make sense for that to be the way it works because of the different structures of internships, is we changed it to a transportation reimbursement. And so we were able, folks are able to think about more variety in ways that they can leverage the funds that we provide for the transportation piece than just the sort of T-Pass piece of it. Great. So shifting gears a little bit to kind of the timeline and what comes next. Our application deadline is November 12th, so coming up in the next couple of weeks. And then from there, what we really focus on, and where a lot of my time gets spent right before that sort of Thanksgiving break, is in matching. So, we're doing follow-up on your applications to get any other clarifications. Myself, along with our manager for admissions and enrollment, I might be getting her title wrong, nobody tell her, will basically come together to look at, all right, well, here's everything on the fellows application and on the supplemental matching form that we have them complete. Here's everything on the host org applications. Where do we have the most points of intersection? And we'll make those matches and then make announcements. What happens from there, and Lisa talked a little bit about this in her one-on-one meeting with Shay, is the next step in the process is that you and the fellow will have what we call a virtual match meeting, which is a 30 to 45 minute meeting where you just get to know each other and be able to get a good sense of fit. It's not an interview. You have been matched with that fellow, but either mentors or the fellow always have the option to not confirm the match after that, right? If for any reason you have pause, there's a form that we have you fill out, and if anything comes up in that, Ellie or I will follow up to address any of those concerns, or if it just doesn't seem like it's gonna be a match that's gonna work. We can't guarantee that there'll be another fellow available because we do match everyone at the same time. But there are instances where a fellow becomes available because a host org might not be able to host them anymore or something like that, that we're able to fit into a position that had declined, and the other way around. So each semester, even as we've grown in enrollment, there are very few folks that decline their matches on either end. It's usually like 1 or 2 a semester because of all the information that we collect and the pieces that come into matching. But it does happen, and we work with folks when it does. I see a couple of related questions in the chat. sorry, I get distracted by the chat. So on that timeline there, after those match confirmations have happened, there's some start of semester paperwork, but essentially fellows will come to us the week of Martin Luther King Day. They'll have a week of what we call launch week, which is an orientation. You all will have a chance to meet them again there. And then they'll start with all of you on January 24th. The semester culminates, in a typical college fashion, right in the beginning of May, just to give you a sense of kind of what that full semester timeline looks like. See a couple of questions in the chat. So the virtual match meeting is definitely, I think, like the types of questions you would ask and things like that are pretty similar to an interview in terms of like, you want to get a sense of who the fellow is, what their interests might be, and if it's a good fit. And you can always decline the match, but it's not, I think the difference between that and an interview is that there's not necessarily a guarantee that another fellow will be available if you do decline the match. And so sometimes we have organizations that say, like, this fellow is a sophomore. That gives me a little bit of pause after talking to them in the interview in terms of, in the match meeting in terms of experience. And in talking to Ellie, or I might say, they have enough, like it seems like it might be a good enough fit, and CFSI provides enough support that we're willing to take a risk, even if we have some pause, or their major's not quite aligned with what we were anticipating, but it's not a technical position like an accounting position, things like that. So, we encourage fellows to go into the process similar to how they would in an interview. It's just not necessarily sort of the same idea at the end of an interview with sort of like you'll have a pool of candidates. And to answer your question, Nicole, we do not currently run summer programming. Our fall semester usually starts right around Labor Day and ends December 8th, I believe, is the last day of internships this semester. And feel free to keep throwing questions in the chat or unmute yourselves. Ellie, if I missed anything in that timeline, feel free to jump back in. Or Eric, if you're still here, if you want to throw out any other wisdom or historical perspective.
I can share a little historical perspective. It is just to reinforce what Marissa is saying. It's different from an interview. There's usually one or two people, one or two students, one or two host orgs who do raise a concern or decline. That's okay. A question came up earlier around, is it competitive? We try to get at least 1.3, so 30% more host organizations than students to really prioritize being able to get a great match for every student. Some host organizations apply for 3 or 4 people, and you might get placed for less than the full amount. And we try hard if it's a great application, if there's not a student that semester who makes for a good match, we will try hard to do it the next semester. So it's like we want to really build long-term relationships and build a learning community among all of you, as well as providing some great matches and hopefully a talent pipeline for the future.
Awesome. And as the person who is tasked with the vast majority of the sort of matching process, I will say every semester I come out of matching thinking like, ooh, are those going to be a good fit? Is everybody going to decline their matches? And I've been in particular this semester in a pandemic where like everything's up in the air in terms of like how well it's going to work compared to previous semesters. I've been shocked by how many fellows have come back saying like, when I got this position, I wasn't really sure if it was going to be a good fit. And I'm so grateful to have been placed at this organization or at this mentor. So fellows really, I think, like all of you, sometimes have to go in trusting the process a little bit. And, 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, that all works out. And as Ellie mentioned, in those instances where there are challenges that arise or something doesn't work out the way we think or life comes up, that's where our team gets deployed. You all are the first emails that we answer, the first phone calls if anybody does that anymore. We always want to make sure that that piece of our program is super solid and supported, and that the other elements of our program around student support and some of that can make a mentor's life as easy as possible. Sorry, Ellie, I think you were about to say something.
I was just going to say, as always, I try and keep my eye on the clock as best I can to be thoughtful of all of your time. So I just want to say out loud that it's 12:59. Marissa and I can stay on for sure to ask any questions or answer any questions folks have individually. Lisa, thank you for being here so much. Everyone else, thank you so much for considering our program. We are here as a resource and hope to see your applications in just a few weeks. But like I mentioned, we can stay on and answer any questions. But Marissa just wanted to sort of keep us on time.
One of the many reasons I appreciate you, Ellie.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here. Like I said, we'll follow up with an email with all this information, slides, everything. But we will stay on for a few minutes should anyone need anything directly. Thank you so much.